Our next presentation, Iran's Foreign Policy After the Islamic Republic, will feature a presentation of the Iran Prosperity Project's blueprint for Iran's foreign policy after the fall of the Islamic Republic and its return to the community of nations. To present the project's recommendations, please welcome Mufti Vice President Kamran Khansarynia. Kamran studied government and international relations at Harvard.
Thank you very much, Mina, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again for being here with us throughout the day and for the remaining few components that we have. As those of you who have come to previous Iran conferences have probably noticed, this year's differs slightly in the fact that as opposed to only having panel discussions, think tank-style panel discussions, we have throughout the day presentations from the Iran Prosperity Project, or IPP, which is an initiative that, at the behest and with the support of the Crown Prince, Mufti is honored to have started last year. Many of you have probably read about some of the work that IPP has done, but for those of you who are not familiar with it, the purpose of the Iran Prosperity Project is to answer resoundingly the question that there is no plan after the fall of the Islamic Republic. It is to answer the question resoundingly that if the Islamic Republic goes, there will be chaos, there will be mismanagement, there will be instability. And our objective, having put together under the leadership of a team of highly capable and talented experts, is to answer those questions and to show the international community, to show the people of Iran that there are answers to the questions that will arise immediately after the fall of the Islamic Republic. And 3 of those have been presented today, and tomorrow's conference will be dedicated to this topic entirely, but in Persian. The one that I will briefly present to you today is on international relations and Iran's future diplomacy after the fall of the Islamic Republic. I should say that I was not the author of this section. My friend and former colleague here at Mufti, Navid Mohebi, was under the guidance of several other esteemed advisors, and we continue to grow that list of advisors. And as Saeed mentioned earlier, these next 2 days mark the final few days of the 45-day open comment period that IPP and Mufti announced, such that after the emergency booklet came out in its first phase, that the public, other experts, as thousands of them have the opportunity to comment on the IPP emergency phase booklet, to improve it, to give feedback, and we are very pleased that at this point over 6,000 people from inside Iran, outside the country, have joined us in this effort, have joined IPP by trying to prepare for the day after. So for just a bit of context for all of you. So in terms of Iran's foreign policy, where are we today? This will come as no surprise to any of you who follow Iran, or even to any of you who just listened to this morning's panels. Iran's foreign policy for the past 46 years under this regime has been really signified by a series of crises, the first of which is the burden that ideology places on Iran's foreign policy. Iran's foreign policy for the past 46 years has not been the foreign policy of a normal country. It hasn't been guided by Iran's national interests or what's in the benefit of the Iranian nation state or Iranian citizens. It's been guided by what is in the personal interests of Ruhollah Khomeini and now Ali Khamenei and those series of mafia leaders around them who benefit from what they call the table of the revolution. Indeed, many of you will know that it's in the Islamic Republic's constitution. It is forced, really, to export the revolution. So it does not see itself as just being the leader of Iran or the government of Iran, but rather the government of the entire Islamic Ummat, or the Islamic nation. And so that's why it's been seen, and we've discussed this morning, to take over countries around the region, from Lebanon to Yemen to Iraq to Syria, so many more. So the first is the ideological burden placed on Iran's foreign policy by this regime. The second is, of course, as a result of that and many other factors, the isolation Iran is under. Iran, prior to the revolution, was really at a crossroads of the Middle East. Iranians traveled visa-free to hundreds of countries around the world. Iran was a hub of not only regional but global commerce and diplomacy. That has changed in the past 46 years. And of course, as we discussed on my panel with Carrie and Mark, the asymmetric dependence that this regime and its weakness have forced Iran to have on Russia and China. This is signified by things that many of you will know, this infamous 25-year deal that the Islamic Republic signed with China, signing off Iran's sovereign rights to the Chinese Communist Party, to Putin's Russia, and more. Fourth, probably most famous here in Washington, are the nuclear tensions, but the threat that the Middle East, the United States, and the world live under the threat of an Islamic Republic atomic bomb. And fifth, of course, is its proxy networks that we discussed throughout the day. So what in IPP do we seek to bring about? What do we recommend for the interim government and the future government of Iran after the fall of the Islamic Republic for its foreign policy? It's guided by 4 goals, the first of which is reintegration into the international community, the normalization of relations with our neighbors in the Middle East, and to bring about a balanced set of relationships with global powers. Iran should not be beholden to China or to Russia or to any state for that matter. As it once had, Iran should have a foreign policy that balances regional neighbors but also global powers and can develop mutually respectful and mutually beneficial relations with all of them. Of course, returning more naturally to alliances with the West that it once had. And finally, to bring about peace not only through strength, but through development, and helping to build the region into a more prosperous one, as outlined by a trip that my colleagues took last week to Israel to begin the process of the Cyrus Accords. Now, Behnam Taleblu, a friend of all of ours who was on the panel earlier, has called this the Iran come home policy. After decades of the Islamic Republic taking over the Middle East, taking over capitals in countries across the region, it's time for Iran, after the fall of this regime, to come home, to think of its people, to build the infrastructure that it needs for its future. And I would add a second to that, which is Iran come home and Iran be a good neighbor. Iran can be, and under the direction that we recommend in this policy paper, a source for regional peace and stability. So what are our assumptions? I won't go through all of these because there's so much to get to. We have a few assumptions based, that our paper is based on, the first of which is that the international community is ready to welcome this change. As I think you saw today, that is the case. That friends in Europe and Israel and the United States will recognize this change. That transparency in Iran's nuclear program, not the fake transparency that Araghchi and Grossi signed today, but proper, actual, verified transparency will lead to the removing of sanctions and the removal of Iran's international isolation. Normalization after decades with Israel so that our region and neighborhood can finally live in peace. And that, as Kerry highlighted earlier, Russia and China will not intervene to save the Islamic Republic, but that they will allow this change to happen. Of course, that doesn't come without risks. I won't go into each of them, but you can read them here, and of course, you can read the entire paper. Some of them are opportunism by other countries, the potentially weak state that Iran will be in immediately after the change, and that's why the presence and the existence of leadership is so critical to ensure that Iran is not taken advantage of in that critical transition period. Most risky to me for the entire project, however, is expectations, and the fact that the people of Iran have been living under such terror for so long, and they have such a clear history with which to compare it. And the difficult thing will be controlling expectations such that people do not hope or imagine that the day that this regime is gone, things go back to 1977. It's going to take time. This proposal is realistic. It's based on facts. It's not based on pie-in-the-sky ideas. So that is a risk. What will we do? What do we recommend to be done immediately? This is week 1, the first of which starts by breaking taboos. Part of those taboos have already begun to be broken, recognizing Israel after decades, normalizing relations with the United States once again, and working openly and clearly with the IAEA, in addition to sending envoys and messages of pacificity, of brotherhood to Iran's regional partners. And of course, requesting immediate suspension of the sanctions. And that goes without saying that the regime's support for proxies would all be gone because that regime would no longer exist. In the months to follow, there are many more things that have to be done to build confidence with regional partners, to build confidence with international institutions, with key global powers. We outline several of them here. It's in much greater detail in the booklet, which I'll allow you to read there. But it culminates in not only fixing the mess that the Islamic Republic will have left Iran with, but building a plan for a sustainable, peace-centered foreign policy for the future of Iran. This, we think, is the beginnings of that, but the interim foreign minister will be responsible for putting together a proper foreign policy that can guide Iran for the years to come. Again, I won't go country by country, but throughout the paper you'll see that our experts who have put this together have analyzed relations between Iran and regional countries and also global powers on a country-by-country basis, and have recommendations as to how to immediately build confidence, how to immediately cut tensions with each of those countries, even the countries with whom it will be very difficult to deal with. For example, Turkey or Azerbaijan, some of whom may want to foster territorial claims against Iran, or who may want to foster dissent or unrest within the country, steps that can be taken to immediately nip that in the bud and ensure that neighbors treat one another with respect. And that will be the first demand that this project outlines, is that Iran, in the future, after the fall of this regime, will seek peaceful relations with all of its neighbors, but that peaceful relationship has to be based on mutual respect for one another's territorial integrity and national sovereignty. And so each of these countries have points to which we allude as to how to solve these issues going forward. Oh, I have a black slide here. And it continues to go on in neighbors in the Persian Gulf, in neighbors in Central Asia, and of course for global powers as well, the United States, China, and others. What do we expect to happen? We expect, if these steps that we outline are followed, for sanctions to be relieved, for the international community to recognize the interim government after the fall of this regime. We expect regional relations to become normalized very quickly, for countries to welcome this change. The secret that we don't say in this report is that even the countries today that are signing normalization agreements with the Islamic Republic, for example, Saudi Arabia, we think and we know that they would welcome this change. They would welcome the Islamic Republic to be gone, but they're not in a political situation to be able to say that yet, and therefore we expect these changes to come about warmly welcomed by Iran's neighbors. And finally, most importantly, underlying all of this is replacing an ideological diplomacy and foreign policy with one based on pragmatism and national interest. But of course, we can't just say that those things are going to happen and never have questions not asked. So we outlined in the report specific metrics as to how the success of this foreign policy transition can be judged, the speed and the scope or width of these recognitions, how quickly sanctions are relieved on Iran, cooperation with international institutions, including the IAEA, and of course, the reduction of regional tensions. So I tried to give that to you all very briefly and short. I encourage you to read this paper in full, whether in English or in Persian, to give us comments and feedback on it, although at this point you only have about 24 hours left because tomorrow is the final day of the comment period. But for those in Washington, the message is quite simple, and for those in London, Paris, Riyadh, wherever they may be, that the regime that will follow the Islamic Republic, provided it goes the way that we are advocating, will be one that fosters peace, that fosters cooperation, that fosters mutual relationships based on mutual respect. And so the way for regional countries, for global powers, to ensure their own security, that of their citizens, and a long-term peaceful relations both in the neighborhood and on the global scale, is to support democratic, legitimate, organic change in Iran to secure the neighborhood and to secure global peace. Thank you very much.